I'll have some like raisin relish. Good morning. This is a completely random day in the life. I am doing several things at once. I've got a pregnant cat who we rescued. We didn't know she was pregnant when we rescued her, but she's kind of going through her nesting phase, which is super clingy around my feet. I can't walk anywhere without her walking. I'm afraid I'm going to step on her. And so I fixed her a box, a nice covered box in an enclosed space. And wouldn't you know, what happens is those little cats, they say, oh great, this is for us. So they are constantly getting in her box. She won't go in it when they're in there, and wherever she wants to go, they want to go. They're very tag along kitty cats. I mean, she is their mama too. So quite a little thing we have going on here. I'm going to be running some errands, but first I'm going to get some of these green tomatoes from our garden chopped and going to make some green tomato mincemeat. You mix those with apples and raisins and other spices, and we'll see how we like it. I'm going to plan to can it. We'll see how much I get. So it's equal parts tomatoes and apple. We're going to see how that goes, and then as this cat drama unfolds, I will let you know how it plays out. I really don't think she's ready yet, but what do I know? We just found her, and she had been up on the shelf for like 18 hours, and when she came down, we found out that she was a she. We thought she was a he all this time. Beautiful black cat with white lips and white paws, kind of a tuxedo marking cat. What a lot of drama we inherited when we inherited these little rescues. The kittens are bringing us a lot of joy. The mama is super nice. She's really sweet, kind of shy still. She has picked me, and she's kind of clingy with me, but I really think she's going to be a nice cat. So I hope she has her kittens sooner than later, because they would make good Christmas presents. I'm just saying, sign yourself up if you need a little kitten. They'll probably be really sweet like she. If you've had cats with kittens, you know what I mean. Cats have such weird ways of choosing a nest. You make them a box, and do they choose that box? Well, sometimes they do. You know, you make them the ideal place that's going to be comfortable and everything, and then they go choose a dresser drawer or something. That's very annoying. I hope she'll come to her senses. Right now I'm just separating. Some of the tomatoes that I picked green have actually turned red, and so that's great. Some of them are in the middle stages, and if they're in the middle stages, I'm going to put them with the red ones because they will hopefully turn. The rest of them I'm just getting tired of looking at, and I don't want them to go bad on me, which is easy to happen. A lot of them are really small, so let's just go ahead and take care of those little guys. Then I have apples from our last pickup that some of them are looking a little bit like they need to be used up, so they will be a good accompaniment to these tomatoes. Just chopped. It turned out to be more than I expected, and what I need to have is a 1-to-1 ratio of tomatoes and apples. So I filled 3 of these dollar store wire baskets, and I got a pan full of chopped up tomatoes. I didn't read the instructions carefully. I knew I was supposed to chop the tomatoes, but I was supposed to finely chop them or coarsely grind them. So if I had known that, it would probably have sped up this whole last hour, but I'm going to correct that. I'm going to just throw the chopped tomatoes into my Vitamix and roughly chop them, and then I'm going to set them aside to drain. I'm supposed to measure the amount of liquid that I drain off of them, and then that is the amount of apple juice that I'm going to add to them. Okay, one thing I noticed is that even though I didn't think that green tomatoes were very juicy, when you grind them or blend them, they release a lot of juice. So I am pouring them into my colander, which you can see over here. And I found that between number 4 and number 5 on my Vitamix works the best. It's turning them, but it's not turning them into puree. It keeps them finely chopped, basically, which is what I'm after. This is what they look like when they're all chopped. So fairly fine. All of my tomatoes have been soaking while I went to town, paid a bill. I came back and got them. They are now in the pot. It's kind of a dry mixture of green tomato, ground up stuff. And it just so happens that I ended up with 2 quarts full of the tomato juice. I didn't add any water to these tomatoes. This is how much juice they had in them. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this. I'm not going to drink it, but I am going to save it for something. I'm going to look up what I can do with that. Okay, so because I have 2 quarts and I'm going to replace the liquid off the tomatoes equally with apple juice, that came out really easily because this happens to be a 2-quart bottle. So this is 64 ounces of Honeycrisp apple juice. So I'm going to add this to the tomatoes, and it's going to turn those tomatoes into something yummy. And I'm going to let that kind of sit while I chop apples. I know that when we were quite a bit younger, my mom made a green tomato mincemeat. I don't remember that much about it. I don't even remember watching her, and I have no idea if it had apples in it. Most of the recipes that I've seen online have about 50-50 apples and tomatoes, plus raisins and spices. Some of them have prunes. Some of them have orange peel and oranges, and I plan to add some orange to my mixture because I feel like that will give it a nice holiday flavor. And people use mincemeat for all types of things. Of course, this is a vegetarian mincemeat, no meat at all. They make pies out of them, and they use mincemeat as a spread, which can go on bread. I'm thinking it would be really yummy on some kind of rolls around Thanksgiving or Christmas season. I just feel like this is a recipe that reminds me of days gone by, because you don't hear too much about mincemeat anymore. So I figured, why not try it once? This is a Honeycrisp apple. I picked out all of the ones that looked like they were going bad a little bit. Not that they were bad, it's just that they were getting a little bit softer. And then I have some of the Crimson Crisp. I have more of those that are going to go into this recipe than the Honeycrisp, because we really are trying to reserve those Honeycrisp for eating fresh. It's looking really colorful. We've got oranges, we've got green tomatoes, we have red apples, all the color. I'm substituting lemon juice for the vinegar. I will be canning this, and so the vinegar brings the recipe up to the proper acidity, but the lemon juice does the same thing. So this might be a slightly more tangy version, but I just don't like vinegar. These wonderful oranges, smelling really yummy. This is looking like a great Christmas time thing. So I've got a blender full of oranges. I'm going to mix my lemon juice with this. This is all going in this pan, and I've got 5 pounds of raisins going in this pan. Hope it all fits. And I've got a baby kitty. I've got 2 baby kitties begging for attention. I don't know what's going on. They're just very friendly right now, following me around like puppy dogs. Okay, so I am going to put, because I'm quintupling this recipe, I'm putting 3 1/3 cups of lemon juice in. But as you recall, I have a lot of apples and a lot of green tomatoes. And that's a lot of raisins. 5 pounds of raisins is a lot. Plus we're going to be adding dates. So I'm a person who can't measure and talk at the same time. So I'm pretty sure that was 2 cups. And here's 3. And so I'm going to have another third. That could have been more. This is supposed to be 32 ounces, which would be 4 cups. And if I'm doing 3 cups, there's barely any left in here. Okay, let's do the math on this. Pardon me, I'm gonna have to think. I'm back, and I had counted correctly. I had to go back and watch the video of myself measuring that stuff, and there's hardly any left in here. So they didn't really sell me 3 or 4 cups of this. You know, 32 ounces is a quart, and that should be 4 cups. Well, when I measured it out, that's not what it is, and this was brand new. So I got gypped. You gotta watch these places. This is the Great Value brand. They gypped me. Okay, I'm gonna blend this. Gonna add that to it. Here we go. What do you think about all this? Okay, you're supposed to blend it till it's mostly blended, like not really. It's supposed to be chunky, and that's what it is. It's chunky. This is all the oranges, including the peels, and it smells very refreshing. And with any luck, by the time Greg gets home, you're not going to be able to see any of the green stuff because he will be highly suspicious of green tomatoes. And we might have to make another run to Costco to replace the raisins because he'll be like, that many raisins? That's a lot of raisins. Do you know how much they cost? I have a jar here of dried fruit that I've had for a while. Now, most of the recipes, basically it's a variety of fruit that it calls for. It can be plums, it can be prunes. Plums and prunes are the same thing. One's dry and one's not. Okay. I suppose you could use figs and you could make some figgy pudding. Although I heard that figgy pudding has raisins in it, not figs. That's confusing, isn't it? Or maybe it's plums, I don't really know. Anyway, what I'm not going to do is waste any. We'll get every single one. So this is a conglomeration of flavors in this stuff. And you know what? My recommendation is don't do what I'm doing because here I am making a giant recipe and I have no idea if anybody's going to like this. And maybe nobody likes it at all. We'll have some like raisin relish because we have a lot of raisins here. This may have to cook down before I add more stuff. What do you think? This pot is 16 quarts. Well, okay, so these are, I have apricots, and I'm adding those in. We've got big old chewy dates. Takes molasses, and I'm using the Golden Barrel molasses, and it's going to take a lot. Do not use blackstrap molasses on this recipe. It's not the kind that we use. It's going to be too bitter. When they started celebrating Thanksgiving, but you know, they didn't have all this stuff that we have. This would be a pretty fancy menu for them to have all this fruit. Of course, they didn't have oranges. They might have had apples, but they didn't have anything naturally. They didn't have any dates, and there wasn't any raisins unless they made them from grapes. But where were they going to find grapes? Maybe they were wild. They were very resourceful, and that's what I like. I guess maybe I should say this reminds me of the Little House on the Prairie days when they would make all the pies. Now, of course, the traditional mince pie takes beef suet, which I'm not gonna put in here. But not all green tomato mincemeat pies call for suet. And I found maybe half and half that have suet and half that are just green tomato and apple and all the things like I'm putting in. So that molasses sure kicked it up. You can really smell that. This is definitely a historical type recipe. I mean, it takes 2.5 tablespoons of cinnamon. And we got this kind from Costco. It's Saigon cinnamon. 3 3/4 teaspoons of cloves. I had to do the math, and if the kids always say, when am I going to use this in real life? Well, fractions, I had to multiply everything by 5, and so I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to multiply that, divide it out. You do use fractions, especially when you're cooking. So yes, there are practical applications, and I don't like to rely on Google for everything. I could have asked, but I didn't want to. I'd rather do it myself. 3 3/4 of a teaspoon. This recipe calls for coconut oil, and you don't add it until the end. So you simmer this forever. Since it's already dark, I'm just going to simmer this through the night because it's supposed to reduce. I had to split it into 2 pans, and it's cooking down. So I'll have to say, I'm kind of surprised. It's very flavorful. It's not quite like I expected. So much flavor. I think I would really like this spread on toast or crackers. It's pretty good. It's sweet because of all those dates and the raisins and everything. I had to add a little more water so it didn't stick. It was starting to stick, and it was just too much in my original pan. After giving my canner and pressure cooker a rest for a couple weeks, here I am loading up the water bath with water so that I can sterilize my jars, so that I can my green tomato mincemeat. It's pretty yummy. I love it, and I can't stop eating it, so I'm hoping most of it makes it into the canner and not into my belly. It's that good. And how about meeting one of our little friends? This one is particularly Greg's favorite. He is so sweet. So sweet. And the other one is super sweet too. These are one of our little rescue babies. We've had him for about a week and a half now. I don't think he's been named. Greg calls him Little Buddy. I don't know what I call him. I've got some in the water bath canner cooking, and I have some lids that are getting hot. So in the meantime, I'm going to just prepare some of these for the freezer. Of course, it would be way easier to freeze all of them, but I don't have that much freezer space, so I'm just doing a few. I have my jelly jars and my cheese jar. But this is how it's coming out. Maybe you can't tell because of the steam, but it's thick, and it's just full of those, it's too steamy, full of the fruit. The apples, I'm really pleased. They have held their shape, and the raisins have, of course, they've plumped up. But it's a nice texture for spreading. I don't know what it will be like in a pie, which is traditionally what it's used for. Hey, baby. Baby's talking to me. So they recommended thickening it when you make a pie or a pastry or something. I think it would make really good pastries, like hand pies. It just dawned on me, I have a whole canner load processing, plus the ones I just put in the jars, and I completely forgot this morning. I was supposed to add coconut oil to this. You cook it all down and then you add the coconut oil. So I'm dumping these from the jar. So some will be without it and some will be with it. Oh well, I probably have about 10 or 12 in the first canner load that are processing. Yeah, I just completely forgot about it. Back, we've got the tomato mincemeat all canned up. It's all finished except for I still have to wash those dishes, and that's the part that's probably the worst. The setup for canning and the cleanup is the worst. The actual, cooking it and putting it in jars, that's a breeze. So the turnout was, we got 14 pints, and my water is hard, the well water, and so when I can things, it makes my jars, it gives this white stuff, this white filmy stuff on the outside. It makes them look ugly, but it's just like calcium. So I got 14 pints, 14 half pints, and 7 quarts, and then I have 6 jars of various sizes, jelly jars, to go in the freezer of the mincemeat. And I really like it. Hey baby, how you doing? This is my buddy. She's my little friend. Yes, she is. She's so loving, and she wanted some loving. So she still doesn't have a name. Whenever I talk, the kitties all come. So she's very sweet. You're very sweet, aren't you? Here I am. She wants to snuggle. Okay, I feel like it was a good success. This was just a whim that I did when we got the green tomatoes. I'm really glad I did this. I really wasn't sure if we would like it. Do you see my friend? Hey, Pee-Pee. Hey. She's a good girl. So, yeah, take a chance on a new recipe. I will put the recipe in the description of where I got this. This is not my own recipe. That's all the canning for now. I don't know. Well, the only other thing that I might be doing is I'm looking at these pumpkins here. They're not going to last. So I really need to take care of the pumpkins. And once I get my nerve up, I'm going to do that. But I have one kid with, looks like the flu, and it feels like I'm coming down with it too. I've got that headache and feeling like it's coming. So I'm trying to keep ahead of it, and yeah, one day at a time. So I hope you have a great week. Have a great day.